Welcome to the program Spiritism Inspiring Lives. Today's reflection is referring to the theme Reincarnation. Let's see what we can learn throughout these points of reflections that we bring here to help us to understand from a transpersonal perspective of life, from a holistic view of our existences. We are immortal beings. As spirits who are evolving. Allan Kardec, in the book The Gospel According to Spiritism, I quote, defines reincarnation as the return of the soul or a spirit to corporeal life, but in another body especially formed for him, and that has nothing in common with the old. Reincarnation, summarizing, is the return of the soul through a new body, which is different from the previous existences. We have one life and many, many different existences. It's interesting to see that it's not only within Spiritism that we bring those definitions of life, of existence, of our reality. We have also Frederick Lenz, who says reincarnation is the evolution of a spirit through matter. Over thousands and millions of lifetimes, the soul evolves. It comes into light. The growth is slow. That is precisely how we, in our evolutionary journey, are through different existences, bringing light to our own shadows, and therefore, gradually, slowly, we are progressing as immortal beings, as we all are. Still, Gabriel Delany, in the book A Reincarnation, I quote, the soul is individualized by the perispirit, as he mentioned that for us. Now, it's important to reflect for those perhaps who are not yet clarified or haven't learned about that we are three-dimensional beings when we are reincarnated. That is, a spirit, perispirit or astral body, and the physical body. So when Gabriel Delany says the soul is individualized by the perispirit, because we are unique beings in the universe, and although the physical body will die through a natural phenomenon that happens on the biological level, the soul does not die. The spirit continues to exist. And we carry on through our perispirit, which is the astral body, and carry on sustaining our own individuality or unique way of being in the universe. Still, Gabriel Delany, in the book A Evolução Anímica, says, I quote, it is to the perispirit that the spirit owns the conservation of its physical and moral identity. Therefore, although we reincarnate through different existences, adopting new bodies, our identity keeps on evolving and is the same as we elaborate ourselves on the physical and moral aspects. So, whatever values, concepts, tendencies that we bring in this existence, for example, and we are enlightening our own shadows, therefore progressing and evolving and harmonizing ourselves, that is imprinted in this perispirit, the spiritual body, therefore is part of our identity for future reincarnations, where we adopt new physical bodies, but we bring our psychological and emotional inheritance from the previous experiences. As we continue our reflections, still Gabriel Delany, in the book A Evolução Anímica, he says to us, I quote, is there a psychological heredity? And he says, no. If by this we mean a transmission of the intellectual faculties in themselves. Yes, if we mean the transmissibility of the organs suitable to manifestation of thought. So, we will not inherit of physical organs, new body, new organs of expressions of the spirit, but we will inherit our psychological values, tendencies, conditionings, habits that we bring, either the constructive, positive, the healthy ones, or our own shadows, our own limitations, those aspects that we, through different existences or through each existence, are invited to address in order to promote our own shadows, to enlighten them so that we can evolve on our psychological dimension. And then if we carry on with now Leon Denis, the French philosopher, in his book, The Problem of Life and Destiny, I quote, "The perispirit is the instrument of precision that records with absolute fidelity the smallest variations of the personality. All the ideas of thought, all the acts of intelligence have their repercussion in it." It's interesting to see that. So it's almost like what he is inviting us to reflect on is to empower us so that we understand that our thoughts, we are the author of them. So it's important to check and be conscious on a daily basis, to be aware what we are thinking, because every thought is of our responsibility. Surely in the level of evolution where we are, we all still have negative thoughts from time to time, or others more often, others less. Having the negative thoughts through our previous existences now in the current memory, which is with us, that is okay, as long as we don't identify ourselves with our own shadows. But we, on the contrary, position ourselves so that we heal ourselves from those eventual negative belief systems that we may still carry, and in that way impacting the perispirit, which is the spiritual body, in a constructive, positive way. Because we all bring limitations from previous existences, and each new existence is a new school, new opportunity where we can re-educate ourselves without blaming ourselves, without feeling shameful, without condemning ourselves. It's just looking and addressing it in a loving way to actualize what is not suitable, which doesn't help us to evolve. If we cannot do that alone, we can reach out for books, we can reach out for groups who study about reincarnation, we can seek therapy, especially in this case, transpersonal perspective, which helps us to include the spiritual element within our psychological and emotional references, also helping to reintegrate, bearing in mind that being on earth is a blessing, is a learning opportunity, so that we can override our old memories through the new choices with our own inner wisdom. Leon Denis, in the book The Problem of Life and Destiny, it still helps us to reflect, and I quote, "When the individual is not free enough to read within himself his past history, he then proceeds by repetitive patterns that reproduce them in his own existences. They are indeed visions, and that is why they cannot always be exact. Although our intellectual memory is, let's say, inhibited temporarily, our emotional memory is not. But for us to be in contact with our references and patterns and conditions and desires, likes and dislikes, from our emotional reference, we need to be willing to develop self-awareness and also learning to have ownership of our own emotions. So when Leon Denis says the visions, but they are not exact, is because sometimes we cannot precisely remember our old tendencies, but there are elements there which can help us gradually. And also when we go to sleep, bear in mind that our physical body sleeps, but the spirit is in the emancipation process. It can also access experiences from previous existences. Those come back in terms of memories, which sometimes are not very clear. It's almost like confused. But again, if you carry on exploring ourselves, studying and reflecting, and also expanding our self-awareness process, that becomes more clear to time. It's just a question of being patient and insisting in revising, in analyzing ourselves, because at the end of the day, reincarnation is a healing process. where through each life that we are, or each existence that we come back to Earth, which is our school of learning in this level of evolution, it is surely in order for us to heal ourselves more, in order to promote ourselves further, in order to grow spiritually. Understanding, as mentioned, reincarnation is a blessing for all of us, in order for us to expand our consciousness. And in the Spirit's book by Allan Kardec, in the question 132, the question is, I quote, "What is the purpose of the incarnation of the Spirit?" It's important to understand, why do we need to come back through reincarnation to different existences? And the Enlightened Spirits are helping our reflections today by saying, I quote, "God offers the incarnation in order to make them reach perfection. For some, it is atonement. For others, mission. But to achieve this perfection, the spirit must suffer all the vicissitudes of bodily existence. The incarnation has yet another purpose, to put the spirit in a position to bear its part in the work of creation." So we have two parts here. What is the purpose of our experience through a new reincarnation? God, the creator of everything and everyone, who is essentially love towards everyone and everything, is offering this possibility for us to gradually perfect ourselves. When the spirits say reach perfection, that needs to be understood, not meaning that we will reach perfection in this existence. That is impossible for any one of us. But what they mean by that is that we are with the possibility to embrace the possibility to progress, to invest or to put efforts into perfecting ourselves. When we reflect about self-awareness, that we become aware of our own limitations or own shortcomings or own imperfections, and are choosing to put effort into to overcome them in training new ways of being, new ways of thinking, new ways of acting. And in that way, we are on the journey of perfecting gradually throughout the days, throughout the times, throughout the different existences. But at the same time that we are promoting the inner growing process, the inner evolution in choosing to become better today than we were yesterday, to become more patient with ourselves and others, to become more responsible in relation to our inner world and in relation to how we perceive the experiences and people. In that way, as we are healing ourselves, and it's almost like that the super faculties of our own deeper self emerge and we stimulate them, we become more virtuous. We, in terms of values, perceptions, concepts, tendencies, and actions, naturally, we are also impacting the environment around us. This is why we said the second point here that helps also to understand the objective or the purpose of reincarnation, which is to cooperate with the Creator, to play our part in helping to humanity to evolve from our own inner individual modification, our own inner transformation. That is the way that actually evolution happens throughout different existences, throughout different times. So it's very important to understand that we, although we are still much more imperfect than perfect, but we are valuable human beings in essence. And our place on earth is very, very important for conquering our own progress, our own spiritual growth, as much as also to be impacting the environment in small attitudes of goodness, of brotherhood, that we can also help perhaps others also to reflect in a more broader way. And still in the Spirit's book by Allan Kardec, same question, 132, I quote, "In this way, by helping to promote the collective good, the spirit evolves." Because no one can evolve spiritually, therefore psychologically, emotionally, mentally and emotionally, through selfishness. In order for us to evolve, there is the need for us to practice and exercise or inner freedom, so that we embrace the collective being. It can be within our own families, which is a collective member. Later on, as more as we mature spiritually, we also extend it to our universal family. We are involved more as a free choice in our communities or neighbors where we are. And in that way, we are helping ourselves and others as well. Because I repeat again, we cannot free ourselves from the selfishness, although we embrace altruism and we exercise that in our choices using our own free will on daily basis. Free will is the ability that we all have to learn to think in a different way, from a transpersonal perspective, from a holistic perspective, understanding that we are not the physical bodies, but we are spirits. Through the reincarnation, we are here once again in this big field of experiences, as I would quite often say, like a life lab, where we are the scientists of ourselves and finding new ways how we can think, how we can behave, always better, always with more quality. As we carry on then with Léon Denis, the French philosopher, in his book O Grande Enigma, I quote, "The human soul can only really progress in collective life, working for the benefit of all," as we just mentioned. So we see that different researchers, different people who are exploring human behavior, human evolution, who are helping the theories to evolve towards the theory of reincarnation, the theory of evolution, the theory of the evolution of humanity. Even they come from different countries, from different backgrounds, but they have the same line of reasoning, always according to what is holistic, what is transpersonal, what transcends the physical element only. And in that way, as we continue our reflection, we see now with Allan Kardec in the Gospel according to Spiritism, I quote, "The passage of spirits through corporeal life is necessary so that they can fulfill, by means of a material action, the tasks that God entrusted them to carry out, the activity to which they are obliged to exercise helps them in the development of intelligence." So any challenging that we face, and all of us face challenges within ourselves in relation to others, in relation to our experiences, be as a mother, as a father, as an employee, as a servant, in different positions that we may find ourselves on earth, we still have challenges. And this is a normal way that we face as we are evolving. The most important aspect here, when we are reflecting about reincarnation, is to understand that the purpose for us to be on earth is to evolve, is to progress. That means that our intelligence also needs to evolve, needs to progress. What do we mean by that is that we are invited to expand our new understandings about life, about even ourselves. As we started these reflections, we are not a physical body. We are a three-dimensional being while incarnated, essentially spirit. We have a perispirit, which is the spiritual body, and the physical body. So our thinking is not coming from our brain, but is expressed through the brain. So we can always change our mental state, our belief systems, our thoughts, actualizing them, especially when we realize that they may be causing pain, that they may be causing disturbances, because that means that we are in a negative loop, which we need to interrupt in order for us to carry on. Corporeal life, for us, beings in evolution, beings essentially of goodness and love, is a great opportunity to further our spiritual growth. When we say that God obliged us to exercise, understanding obligation is not in a sense of that is imposed. We need to decodify the words through our new understanding. God offers us the possibility, because we will not really be happy unless we fulfill within ourselves God's wills. And God's will is always to be good, to be fraternal, to develop brotherhood, to be respectful for ourselves and others, to engage in the community, to help, to promote, to be good, tolerant, forgiving, and so on and so forth. So he offers the possibility, and us as creatures have the free will to choose or not. If we choose to invest in our spiritual growth, we are healing ourselves. When we choose to reject temporarily, we will have a new opportunity through a new reincarnation to come back again in order to carry on where we stopped our process. But bear in mind, each time that we refuse to grow, we are intensifying temporarily pain and sufferings and discomfort or mental conflicts. And surely this is not what we are aiming. Daphne Garding in the Spirits magazine from December 860, she says, I quote, "Reincarnation is a logical thing. It touches our senses. So therefore, it's only about reflecting, analyzing our surroundings. You will have to look only within yourselves to find the proofs of reincarnation. Once we really journey within, and therefore we also need to promote ourselves to a level that we have time to be with our own company, time to reflect about who I am, time to meditate about what are my belief systems that predominantly are nourishing my mind, what predominates in my emotion dimension, what are the patterns of reaction or not that we may have, what I'm aiming within my knowledge so far to heal myself, what are the possibilities that are available on a daily basis, what are my old tendencies as we are just presented here. Because once we take the responsibility for own evolution, to become aware, to become conscious, to heal ourselves, understanding responsibility means spiritual autonomy, then we also will stop any projections onto others, blaming others. But we take this autonomy to say, well, here today with this person in this situation, I may realize that I'm very reactive. And therefore, I choose now to learn to control myself, meaning controlling my thoughts, controlling my emotions, controlling my actions, and exercise myself towards in a balance. Bear in mind that the goal may be in a harmony, in a peace, and also learning to be fraternal so that we are more resilient with different people, with different situations, less reactive and more flexible within. In that way, we are learning to grow and advance in our spiritual journey. It's still Allan Kardec in the Gospel According to Spiritism helps us to advance in our reflections. I quote, "The passage of a spirit through corporeal life is necessary," as we just mentioned. Sorry, this one I repeat again. To develop intelligence. Intelligence means is different than developing into cognitive references. The intelligence needs to be promoted in the same way that we promote theories, that we advance, that we understand new ways of being, especially when we reflect about reincarnation, understanding, for example, ourselves. How much have I wake up spiritually in order to perceive myself that I'm an immortal soul? And therefore, my choices on daily basis may be towards that direction, considering that I will always be with my own company throughout the different reincarnations, that I will always be living with myself. And surely we are invited through the inner growth to become our best companions, our best friends in healing any negative element that we still may have. And that is important to reflect how we are relating with within our own families. Because again, different members of families are different elements that we attracted in order to promote further our ability to love, our ability to forgive, our ability to tolerate, our ability sometimes to silence, our ability sometimes to express ourselves assertively, our ability to discern, and so many different aspects. The main point is always observing any negative limited element that may emerge within our individuality, and in a loving way to embrace that, to acknowledge that, and be willing to transcend that. We are already in a position that we can promote our thoughts. We can learn to think in a different way. And as mentioned previously, if that is not possible to do alone, we can reach out for books, we can reach out for study groups who approach these subjects, we can reach out in therapy, especially from a transpersonal perspective, we can reach out for help so that we individually and collectively can take advantage of each existence and each moment in each existence to invest in our inner recovery, inner promotion, inner healing, and advancing in our journey as immortal beings, as we all are, essentially beings of love, beings of goodness. I do wish you much peace, and I hope to see you in another occasion. Much peace to all.